After I got them all divided, I thought the easiest portion to start with would be mod lot, because I think that was the one that intrigued me the most. So I started taking notes on the envelopes themselves, because it was a collection of correspondence. So it was just a bunch of letters to Maud Lott from her husband, Jim Andrews. There was no inclusion of her responses to these letters. It was just his. So I had to piece together a story just based on his responses. But I would take note of the envelope, so who it was going to, where it was from, the date, and then I would read the letters themselves. And in my notes, I would do brief descriptions of what it was about. Usually it was, I miss you, I love you, this is what I did today, hope the weather's great there, hope you're having fun, and then that was it. And then with Prince Benjamin, it was a lot of rent accounts. He had specific properties, and there were details of the tenants and how much they paid and when they paid. There was correspondence between the property management, the Parker Realty here in Brunswick, Georgia, and there were a few letters to his son, Felix, because Felix also owned a property as well that he rented. So there were a few letters there pertaining to him. And then the third project was very not related at all. There were a lot of insurance pamphlets, insurance claims, or rather insurance policies. So those I would take note of the company itself, who had the policy, what the policy covered, who was the beneficiary, the date it was effective. And then there were a couple different blueprints for Brunswick, and there were a couple small notebooks that contained court shorthand, which was interesting. I never went into detail on what the shorthand was saying, which would be something interesting for somebody to do eventually, should they ever discover the collection. But after I had done my detailed notes, I started to organize them, and I decided best to do chronological order for each of the three collections. So I started with Maud Lott, and I got those organized in chronological order, and then I put them into folders. I put them into folders. The acid-free folders, and I made sure to not label them right away because I wanted to make sure that my order was correct. I had been pre-warned to not label anything until nearly the end. That way you wouldn't have to rearrange or erase 8,000 times. So I used acid-free paper and the archival plastic paper clips to attach numbers to each of my folders that would go in the order that I needed it to. I did the same for all three of the collections, and then I organized them and put them in the correct size boxes. I can't think of what those are called.
The flip boxes?
The flip boxes. And then I came up with names, which proved easy for Maud Lott. We went with the Maud Lott papers because it was a collection of correspondence. And then for Prince Benjamin, since it was more official, we went with the Prince Benjamin collection. And then for the final collection, because they were not related and it was rather difficult to come up with a name, I asked Dr. Montfort, I asked Hesper, and I asked William as well, and we went around in circles for a little while, and the exact name I have right here. We went with local insurance and property records was what we officially decided on. So after I did all of that, then I started creating a finding aid. So whoever comes in after me and has interest in Prince Benjamin or Maud Lott or local insurance and property records, they would easily be able to look through that finding aid and know where the box was and what it entails. So I did I delved deeper into the history for each person. So I went on Ancestry.com or findagrave.com, and I was able to compile histories for Lott and her family, and a shorter history for Prince Benjamin and his family. And then I did a cursory history research for each of the insurance companies, and if they were still around, or if they'd been renamed, or if they'd been absorbed into a different company. And then once that was compiled, I finally put names on each of my folders and I numbered them and submitted everything, and that was the end of it.
Whenever I got here, the first thing that I did was I talked to Miss Montford. She was my supervisor here, and she kind of gave me some guidelines as to how I was supposed to work. She told me that that I just needed to complete this many hours. It was about 120. I think I actually went over that. And I was supposed to work here in the archives, and that I was going to be trying to look through these files, find a logical organization of them, and then come up with a summarized list of all of the files within the collection. And at first I thought, oh, that's going to be easy. That'll be easy. I can just do this like on the side. And then I got it, and I had tons of files, and I was like, oh my goodness, there's so much to handle. And I was at first a little bit overwhelmed. But I took the manual that we had, and I took the directions that were given to me, and it got a little bit easier. Mostly I would come in, and I had this accordion file right here. I would take files out. Sometimes they were already in folders. A lot of times they were paper clipped together, they were stapled, and I would take those apart to make sure that the documents were preserved well. And then I would look through them. I would take a few notes and put them in Google Drive, so I had a copy of myself, and I could refer back to it. And then what I would do is I would place them in regular archival folders so that they were acid free, and it helped preserve the paper. After that, whenever I was kind of finished with that at that stage, which was most of the time, I would then take out the folders. I would start writing on them and labeling them and where they fit within the collection and their specific volumes, and I place them in these big boxes. And I think I have 3. I know I have these 2, and I believe that one right there is also one of my boxes. So there was a lot of files. But afterwards, I then organized it based on box and where the number of the file, and those kinds of things. Towards the end, I call up Miss Montford, and she's confused. She's like, I have no idea what this is for. And I'm like, Miss Montford, I have no idea what this is for either. And I actually found this right here. I don't know if you can see it. It's a poster. It's a piece of paper about this wide, this long, and it is a sketch of one of the city corners. And I found it, and I was like, I have no idea what to do with this. This is way too big to fit in any sort of archival folder. And she's like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. This looks amazing. And I show it to her, and she's just amazed. And I'm like, well, I have no idea what to do with it. And she said, well, what you need to do is, if you can find space, you need to find a table and try and press it so the creases will stop, because it'll cause the ink to fade. And so I did that, and I've made a makeshift way to press the poster. It was a lot of fun, and I'm really glad I was able to save it, because I think it's very beautiful. It's very detailed, and the ink is already starting to fade, so I'm happy that maybe they'll have it for quite a few more years. And what was really, I think, the highlight of it was this collection comes with this box right here, which was a time capsule. And I wasn't able to go through the time capsule, but it was very funny because some of the things in the time capsule, for example, there was an eye patch, and there was a hook hand, among other things, and it was a lot of fun. It made it more whimsical, and it was like, okay, well, these people were people. They were just staunch, and it made things a little bit more lighthearted.